In 1945, in the dead lands of Upper Egypt, a farmer named Muhammad Ali accidentally shattered an ancient clay jar. He was hoping to find gold. Instead, he found something far more dangerous. Inside were 13 leather-bound books, texts that had been buried in the sand for 1,600 years, texts that the early church had hunted down and ordered to be destroyed. Why? What were they afraid of? Among those books was a text that starts with a line that should make the Vatican shudder. It reads, "These are the secret words which the living Jesus spoke and which Didymos Judas Thomas wrote down. This is not a story about miracles or loaves and fishes. This is a code to break reality." The Gospel of Thomas does not just speak about heaven. It speaks about a war against invisible rulers, entities the Bible calls fallen angels. But this text calls them something worse, the Archons. If you understand what is written here, you will realize one terrifying truth. Earth is not your home. It is a farm, and you are the livestock. Welcome to the truth that has been hidden for 2 millennia. Let us go back in time. Not to the time of Jesus, but to the 4th century. The year is 367 AD, a defining moment in history. Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria sends out his infamous Easter letter. In it, he lists the 27 books that we now call the New Testament. He declares that only these books are the source of salvation. But the silent order beneath his words was terrifying. All other books were heresy. All other books had to be burned. All other books had to be erased. Why this ruthless purge? Was it just theology? Or did these forbidden books contain intelligence that the people in power did not want you to have? The monks at the Pachomius monastery did not burn them. They knew the value of the truth. Under the cover of darkness, they took these forbidden texts out into the desert. They sealed them in a clay jar and buried them deep underground at the base of a cliff called Jabal al-Tarif. They slept there for 1,600 years. Meanwhile, the world above was shaped by a carefully edited version of Christianity, a version that told you that you are a born sinner, that you need the church to be saved, and that demons are merely tempters of morality. But when that jar broke in 1945, the Gospel of Thomas stepped into the light to tell a very different story. It contains 114 sayings of Jesus. No storytelling. No crucifixion, no resurrection narrative, just pure, razor-sharp teachings. And the most shocking part? It describes this world not as the masterpiece of the Father, but as a corpse. In saying 56, Jesus says, "Whoever has come to know the world has found a corpse, and whoever has found a corpse, of him the world is not worthy." Stop and think about that. Traditional scripture teaches us that God saw everything he made, and it was very good. But here Jesus calls the material world a dead thing, a rotting carcass. Why is there such a terrible contradiction? The answer lies in the identity of the creators. According to the texts found alongside Thomas in the Nag Hammadi library, such as the Apocryphon of John, this material world was not created by the supreme God. It was built by a fallen entity, a clumsy and jealous craftsman called the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. And serving under him are the Archons, the rulers. These are the exact same beings the Book of Enoch calls the Watchers. These are the fallen angels. But while the Book of Enoch describes them as giants who taught men to make swords, the Gospel of Thomas describes them as something far more subtle. They did not just teach us war. They created this reality. They built the physical body to trap the human spirit. The discovery at Nag Hammadi was not just archaeology. It was like finding the black box of a plane crash that happened at the dawn of humanity. And the Gospel of Thomas is the cockpit voice recorder, revealing the true voice of the pilot before everything fell apart. If what is written in this book is true, Then religious history for the last 2,000 years has been a cover-up operation, a play designed to keep us sleeping in this corpse, serving the Archons without ever knowing it. But who was authorized to record these words? Why did Jesus choose Thomas? In the next chapter, we will decode the mystery of the man known as the Twin of God, and we will find out why he knew secrets that even Peter and John were forbidden to hear. The truth about the bloodline and the mission of Thomas will make you question every painting of the Last Supper you have ever seen. Who was the man entrusted with these secrets? Why did Jesus choose him and not Peter, the rock of the church, or John, the beloved disciple? The opening line of the text identifies the author as Didymos Judas Thomas. This is not just a name, it is a code. In ancient Greek, the word Didymos means twin. In Aramaic, the name Thomas also means twin, so his name literally translates to twin Judas twin. But who is he the twin of? In the early Syrian traditions of the Church, it was whispered that Thomas was the spiritual twin of Jesus. Not necessarily a physical brother, but a soul who mirrored the Christ, a being who had achieved such a high level of enlightenment that he and the Master were one and the same in spirit. This gave Thomas a dangerous authority. While Peter was building a church structure, Thomas was receiving secret downloads about the nature of reality. There is a terrifying scene in the Gospel of Thomas, known as Saying 13, that illustrates this separation. Jesus asks his disciples to compare him to someone. Simon Peter compares him to a righteous angel. Matthew compares him to a wise philosopher. But Thomas says something different. He says, "Master, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are like." Jesus responds by saying, "I am not your master. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring, which I have measured out." Then Jesus takes Thomas aside and whispers 3 secret words into his ear. When Thomas returns to the other disciples, they ask him, "What did Jesus say to you?" Thomas replies with a warning that should freeze the blood of any dogmatic believer. He says, "If I tell you one of the words which he said to me, you will pick up stones and throw them at me. A fire will come out of the stones and burn you up." What kind of knowledge is so volatile that it would cause the apostles of Christ to commit murder? What secret did Thomas carry that was too dangerous for the Bible? It was not a moral teaching. It was not a commandment. It was a revelation about the true rulers of this world. Thomas knew that the entity humanity worshipped was not the true Father of Light, but a jealous impostor. He knew about the Archons. We have been conditioned to believe that the world is a battleground between God and Satan. But the Gospel of Thomas, supported by other texts found at Nag Hammadi, presents a much more disturbing picture. It describes a hierarchy of invisible beings who control the material universe. In Greek, they are called Archons. The word simply means rulers. The Apostle Paul hinted at them in Ephesians when he wrote that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. But the Gospel of Thomas tears the veil off completely. It suggests that these rulers are not just demons hiding in the dark. They are the architects of physical reality itself. They are the jailers of the human soul. In the secret theology of Thomas, these beings correspond perfectly to the fallen angels described in the Book of Enoch. But their function is different. In Enoch, the Watchers descend to corrupt humanity with technology and war. In the Gnostic tradition of Thomas, the Archons entrap humanity with ignorance. They created the physical body as a cage. They created the concept of time to keep us in a loop of suffering. They created religious laws to keep us obedient to them, rather than waking up to our own divine nature. The leader of these Archons is often identified in Gnostic texts as Yaldabaoth, the lion-faced figure, the false god who screams, "I am God and there is no other beside me." He is jealous because he knows something that humans have forgotten. He knows that inside the human form, trapped within the heavy clay of matter, is a spark of the true light, a fragment of the pre-existent Father. The Archons feed on this light. They feed on our fear, our devotion, our conflict, and our ignorance. As long as we believe we are merely physical bodies fighting for survival, we remain their food source. In saying 21 of the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus uses a chilling metaphor. He compares the disciples to little children living in a field that is not theirs. When the owners of the field come, they say, "Give us back our field." The owners of the field are the Archons. The field is the material world, and they want to strip us naked and reclaim what they believe is their property. This is the hidden history of the fallen angels. They did not just fall, they took over. And according to Thomas, they are still in charge today. If the Archons control the physical universe, then what is their ultimate weapon? It is not war. It is not famine. It is the very vessel you are inhabiting right now, the human body. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus looks at the human condition with a mixture of pity and amazement. In saying 29, he says, "If the flesh came into being because of spirit, it is a wonder. But if spirit came into being because of the body, it is a wonder of wonders. Indeed, I am amazed at how this great wealth has made its home in this poverty. The great wealth is your soul, the poverty is your body." The Gnostic texts explain that the Archons, led by the Demiurge, created the physical body to trap the divine spark. They saw the light of the true spirit and they were jealous. They could not possess the light, so they encased it in heavy, dense matter. They engineered a biological machine designed to distract you constantly. Think about it. How much of your life is spent serving the needs of the body? You must feed it. You must wash it. You must rest it. You must protect it from pain. You are enslaved by its hormones, its desires, and its fears. The Gospel of Thomas calls this state being drunk. In saying 28, Jesus says, "I found them all drunk, and I did not find any of them thirsty. My soul ached for the children of humanity, because they are blind in their hearts, and do not see that they came into the world empty, and they seek to go out of the world empty." Being drunk means being intoxicated by the illusion of the material world. It means forgetting where you came from. The Archons designed the body to be a forgetfulness machine. When you are born into this flesh, the trauma is so severe and the sensory input is so overwhelming that you suffer from amnesia. You forget that you are a being of light. You start to believe you are just a clever animal fighting for survival. In saying 87, Jesus delivers a brutal verdict on this symbiotic relationship. He says, "Wretched is the body that is dependent on a body, and wretched is the soul that is dependent on these two." He is telling us that identification with the biological form is the root of all suffering. The Archons know that if you realize you are immortal, their power over you vanishes. You cannot threaten a being who knows death is an illusion, so they keep you obsessed with the survival of the flesh. They keep you in fear of death. But the Gospel of Thomas offers a key to the cell door. It tells us that the body is not you. It is a garment. And one day you must take it off. Let us return to the most volatile moment in the text. The moment Jesus took Thomas aside and whispered 3 words. The words that made the other disciples want to throw stones. For centuries, scholars and mystics have debated what these words were. If we look at the context of Gnosticism and the war against the Archons, the answer becomes terrifyingly clear. The disciples, like most people of that time, worshipped Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, the God of laws, wars, and judgment. They believed Jesus was the Messiah sent by this God. But Thomas knew the secret. It is highly probable that the 3 words Jesus whispered were a denial of the Creator God of this world. He likely told Thomas that the God of Genesis, the God who drowned the world in a flood, The God who demands blood sacrifice is not the true Father. He is an Archon. He is Yaldabaoth. Imagine Jesus whispering, "I am not his son." Or perhaps, God is a liar. To a devout Jewish disciple like Peter, this would be blasphemy punishable by death. It would be the ultimate heresy. That is why they would pick up stones, because the truth that Thomas received dismantled their entire reality. This revelation completely changes the mission of Jesus. In the Orthodox view, Jesus came to appease the anger of God by dying on a cross. But in the Gospel of Thomas' view, Jesus did not come to pay a debt to an angry God. He came to launch a rescue mission behind enemy lines. He came to infiltrate the realm of the Archons and remind the prisoners that they are royalty. Saying 13 confirms this separation. Jesus tells Thomas, "I am not your master." By saying this, he is elevating Thomas to the status of a brother, an equal. He is saying, "You do not need to worship me. You need to become like me. You need to drink from the same bubbling spring of knowledge." The Archons rely on hierarchy. They want you to bow. They want you to have masters, kings, priests, and gods. By shattering the master-servant relationship, Jesus was handing Thomas the ultimate weapon against the Archons: sovereignty. Now you understand why Bishop Athanasius ordered this book to be destroyed in 367 AD. Now you understand why the Vatican would prefer this jar remained buried in the desert forever. The Gospel of Thomas is dangerous to any institution that relies on control. The Church, and indeed most organized religions, act as a middleman. They say, "You are broken, you are sinful, you are separated from God, you need the priest, you need the ritual, you need the tithe, you need us to negotiate with the divine for you." But listen to saying 3 of the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus says, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father." Read that again. The kingdom is inside you. You do not need a temple. You do not need a bishop. You do not need to die to go to heaven. The divine connection is hardwired into your being. It is right there, buried under the noise of the Archons. This teaching renders the entire structure of the Church obsolete. If you can access God directly through self-knowledge or gnosis, then the Archons lose their power structure on earth. The war against Gnosis was not a war against heresy. It was a war for market share. It was a war for control over the human mind. The Orthodox authorities wanted sheep who would follow the shepherd. Thomas wanted lions who would wake up and roar. In saying 2, Jesus describes the painful process of this awakening. He says, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." Notice the sequence: seeking, troubled, astonished, ruling. The truth is not comforting at first. It is troubling. To realize that your world is a prison, that your body is a trap, and that your gods are jailers. This is a trauma, but it is a necessary trauma. It is the shock of waking up in a cold room. Only after the shock can you be astonished by your true power, and only then can you rule over the all. The Archons do not want you to rule, they want you to serve, and that is why they burn the books. It is impossible to read the Gospel of Thomas today without seeing the parallels to our modern technological world. We talk about simulation theory. We talk about the universe being a hologram. We talk about AI controlling our algorithms. The Gnostics were the original conspiracy theorists of the simulation. They simply used different vocabulary. Instead of AI, they said Archons. Instead of a simulation, they said the corpse. Instead of a program, they said fate. In saying 80, Jesus says, "He who has recognized the world has found the body, but he who has found the body is superior to the world." He is telling us that once you see the glitches in the matrix, you are no longer bound by its code. The Archons operate through deception. They are the masters of virtual reality. They project illusions of power, wealth, and fear to keep us engaged in the game. They create wars to generate emotional energy. They create division to keep the divine sparks separated. Saying 16 is one of the most shocking verses for those raised on the idea of gentle Jesus. He says, "Men think, perhaps, that I have come to cast peace upon the world. They do not know that I have come to cast divisions upon the earth, fire, sword, and war." He is not talking about physical violence. He is talking about cutting the cords of attachment. He is talking about a sword of truth that severs the connection between the awakened soul and the sleeping society. To wake up from the matrix is a lonely process. It means disconnecting from the collective hallucination. It means looking at the systems of this world, politics, religion, entertainment, and seeing them as scripts written by the Archons. When you do this, you become what Jesus calls a passerby. In saying 42, the entire instruction for life is condensed into 2 words: become passers-by. Do not get attached. Do not build your house on the bridge. Cross over it. Treat this world like a hotel room, not a home. Use it, learn from it, but do not fall in love with the furniture, because the hotel belongs to the Archons, but your home is in the light. So how do we win? How do we escape the cycle of reincarnation and the grip of the fallen angels? The Gospel of Thomas does not offer a savior who does the work for you. It offers a map and tells you to walk. The escape is through gnosis, knowledge, but not intellectual knowledge. You cannot memorize your way out of the matrix. It is experiential knowledge. It is the deep cellular remembrance of your origin. In saying 50, Jesus gives the disciples the passwords they will need when they confront the Archons after death. He tells them, "If they say to you, 'Where did you come from?' say to them, 'We came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord.' If they say to you, 'Is it you?' say, 'We are its children, and we are the elect of the living Father.' If they ask you, 'What is the sign of your Father in you?' say to them, 'It is movement and repose.' This is the ultimate declaration of independence. You are telling the Archons, 'I am not your slave. I am not made of your dust. I am from the pre-existent light. I am royalty. The victory over the fallen angels is not fought with swords. It is fought with identity. The moment you remember who you are, their illusion collapses. The prison door unlocks, not because the door opens, but because you realize there never was a door. The jar in the desert was broken for a reason. The time of secrets is over. The signal is broadcasting. The only question remaining is, are you listening? And if you have heard these words, if you have felt that trouble in your spirit, that astonishment, then you are already waking up. Do not go back to sleep. The Archons are watching, but now you are watching them. You are.